Nobody came prepared for this. They tuned in for a standard interview. Light banter, maybe a funny story, and a movie plug. But what unfolded that night on Jimmy Kimmel's stage was not entertainment. It was revelation. No cue card could have predicted it. No segment producer could have staged it. This wasn't Tom Hardy, the charming actor. This was a man walking onto the stage carrying years of silence and finally ready to speak. From the moment Hardy entered, something felt different. Not in his body language, still cool, calm, and collected, but in the air around him. The audience's applause was thunderous, but Hardy's gaze didn't scan the crowd the way most guests do. He went straight for the chair, shook Jimmy's hand firmly, and sat with a poise that suggested control, but not comfort. Kimmel opened with what you'd expect. Jokes about LA traffic, Hardy's intense movie roles, the gruff voice. Hardy played along, he chuckled, nodded, even responded with a few witty remarks of his own. But there was a stiffness in his smile, and then Kimmel pivoted. "So, Tom," he said with a grin, "a lot of headlines about you lately. Want to clear up the rumors?" Hardy's face didn't change much, but his posture did, just slightly. "Enough." "Which rumors?" he asked, voice level. "You know," Kimmel teased, "the hotel fight, your marriage, that run-in with the press. People are curious." Hardy looked at him, expression unreadable. "I thought we were here to talk about the film." Kimmel shrugged. "We'll get there, but come on, people want to know who the real Tom Hardy is." The temperature dropped, not in the room but in the atmosphere. The audience, once laughing freely, grew quiet. Hardy didn't blink. "Is this that kind of interview?" he asked. "It's always that kind of interview," Kimmel said, leaning in with mock secrecy. Hardy leaned back, slowly, intentionally. "You want the real me?" he said. "Then understand this. Once we go down that road, there's no cutting to commercial when it gets uncomfortable." Kimmel laughed lightly, unsure whether to retreat or double down. But Hardy wasn't smiling anymore. "You sure you want this?" Hardy asked again. "Because you poke the bear, and you better be ready when it looks back." There was no snarl in his tone, no threat, just weight. The kind of weight that comes from carrying more than people realize for longer than anyone knows. The audience sensed it. The crew sensed it. Kimmel tried to steer things back, pulling out his next cue card. "Let's talk about the movie," he offered. "Dead Ground, former soldier, underground fighter, right? Sounds intense." Hardy nodded. "It's about trauma, about what happens when people think they own your story before they've even asked you about it." The answer cut clean through the moment. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't dressed up. Kimmel blinked. "Sounds like something you relate to." "I do, for obvious reasons." "And what are those reasons?" Hardy didn't hesitate. "Because you sit in this chair and people pretend they want the truth, but really they want the version of you they can control, something clickable, shareable, clean." The audience wasn't laughing anymore. Kimmel tried to bring it back. "This is just a talk show. We're not trying to harm anyone." "But you do," Hardy said. "You dress it in applause and call it entertainment. But at the end of the day, you take people's lives, pain, failure, and turn it into something consumable. Then you ask them to smile through it." Kimmel raised his hands, palms out. "I didn't mean to cross a line." "You didn't mean to," Hardy echoed, "but you did." And just like that, the show was no longer Kimmel's. It belonged to the truth that had just entered the room. A moment passed, then another. The studio lights remained as bright as ever, but now they felt glaring, almost intrusive, like they were exposing something that wasn't meant to be part of the script. Kimmel adjusted in his chair. "Okay," he said, forcing a smile that cracked at the edges. "Let's reset. Can we talk about what drew you to Dead Ground?" Hardy's voice remained cool. "What drew me? The fact that the character only speaks when it matters, that he doesn't perform. He survives." "Sounds powerful," Kimmel replied. "It's honest," Hardy said flatly. "And that's rare in rooms like this." Kimmel opened his mouth, then closed it again. Something had shifted, not just in the mood, but in control. Hardy wasn't just answering questions now. He was steering the narrative. "I get it," Kimmel offered. "But you know, this is a late-night show. People tune in to laugh, unwind." So truth isn't entertaining? Hardy challenged. Vulnerability doesn't get ratings? Kimmel hesitated. Not as much as a good punchline. Then maybe we're all laughing at the wrong things, Hardy said. There was no applause, no laughter, just silence that wrapped around the studio like a vacuum. You bring people here, Hardy continued, and you ask about their trauma, their divorces, their breakdowns, then edit it into a highlight reel. And we let you because we're told that's the job. Kimmel nodded slowly. I've had people say this show was the first place they felt seen. And how many more left feeling gutted? Hardy pressed. How many guests go backstage and crumble, then have to smile again 10 minutes later for the next stop on the press tour? Kimmel looked toward the crew, maybe hoping for a cue, some escape route. None came. Hardy wasn't giving him one. You don't get it, Hardy said. It's not just about me. It's about every actor, artist, human who comes on here carrying something. And they get turned into a meme because the lighting was bad or they flinched at the wrong question. Someone in the audience tried to clap. It didn't stick. The moment didn't allow for it. You've got women coming on here being asked about how they stay in shape before being asked about their work. Men told to laugh off their trauma, and when they don't, you call them difficult. I've never called you that, Kimmel said. Not out loud. Hardy stood for a brief second, then sat again, enough to jar the room. I'm not walking out, he said, not because I owe this show anything, but because walking out would let you return to business as usual. And I'm tired of pretending usual is okay. The crew in the control booth wasn't talking. No one cut to commercial. The red recording lights glared like witnesses. Kimmel ran a hand through his hair. Okay, what would you change? Start with listening, Hardy replied. Then stop cutting real people down to fit into 5-minute packages labeled authentic. Stop using vulnerability as a ratings hook. Kimmel softened. Would you believe me if I said I didn't know how deep this ran? I'd believe you, Hardy said, but I'd respect you if you did something with it. Another pause. This one felt different. Not tense, open. You said earlier you weren't afraid of this conversation, Hardy continued. Prove it. Kimmel looked at the audience, then back at Hardy. Let's finish it. All of it. Hardy nodded once. And for the first time all night, they were no longer performer and host. They were two men face to face, beneath hot lights, stripping away the script. Kimmel leaned in, this time without a smile, without a cue. So where does this frustration come from, Tom? Not just tonight, but everything. Hardy answered instantly. It comes from watching people I care about break down, from friends who medicate just to make it through a press tour, from seeing actors cry in green rooms because someone asked about their childhood trauma like it was a punchline. The crowd didn't stir. No one fidgeted. They were locked in. You know what's worse, Hardy added? We normalize it, call it part of the job, but it's not. It's exploitation. And we feed it. Kimmel sat back, absorbing it. Do you think it's gotten worse in the social media era? Not worse, just constant. There's no off switch now, Hardy said. You're not a person anymore. You're a clip, a brand, a headline. If you're not giving the audience what they want, they move on. Or worse, they destroy you for being human. Kimmel nodded. I've seen it. I've probably contributed to it. Hardy didn't respond. The silence was enough. So what do we do now? Kimmel asked. Hardy looked out at the audience, then back at him. We talk, like this. We stop cutting off real moments because they make us uncomfortable. We stop treating people like props. A beat passed. And what do you want people to understand about this chair? Kimmel asked. That behind every smile is a decision, Hardy said. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's a shield. Sometimes it's the last defense someone has before breaking. Kimmel's voice cracked slightly. You've turned this show inside out tonight. It needed turning, Hardy replied. They sat in the pause together. Kimmel finally turned to the camera. If you tuned in for jokes, I'm sorry. But if you stayed, maybe you saw something that matters. Hardy added, and if you're struggling, you don't owe anyone a performance. Not today, not ever. No music played, no commercial followed. Kimmel stood and extended his hand. This time Hardy took it. And the audience didn't clap because they were told. They clapped because something honest had happened, something rare. something real. The lights dimmed slowly, and for once, no one looked away.